Hello my friends, my name is Renee and we're going to be talking about how to do a basic downward facing dog. Downward dog is a very common yoga pose that you'll find in any class you go to or any practice that you do in yoga. It's the bread and butter of yoga and it is very, very effective in stretching the whole body for the most part. What do we get out of downward facing dog? The first thing you'll probably notice is that you get a tremendous stretch out of your hamstrings and out of your calves. It's going to elongate your spine, it's going to stretch the shoulders and the chest muscles, and it's going to strengthen the upper body. So there's so much benefit we can get from it. But it's easy to do incorrectly if we don't know what we're doing. Now, I could spend 30 minutes talking about the subtlety of the form and alignment of downward dog, but I don't want to put you to sleep. So what I'm going to do is try to very concisely talk about some main points about downward dog, and then I'm going to show you some modifications. So stick around towards the middle and the end of the video, because that's where I'm going to get the modifications. If our bodies aren't ready to stretch in the way the pose is taking us into, it won't let us, because if we stretch beyond our ability to, that means injury. So the body will find ways to get out of stretching. So the modifications I'm going to show you with the chair and with the blocks will help you get the most out of the pose while still being safe and working within your abilities at this time. So otherwise, if you have a mat, please get one out. If you need recommendations for a mat, I have links below the video at different price points. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about shoulder alignment and then translate that into the pose, which I'll do in a moment. Now, the first thing I want you to do is just bring your arms up like this. So palms are facing out, just raise the arms overhead. Okay, we are going to be doing this same motion on the mat with weight in our arms. And that's where it's easy to get to mix things up. So when we raise the arms, what naturally happens, watch my shoulders, let me do that again. See that? So this tends to go up. It's kind of close to my face, or maybe it's here for you. And what we want to do in downward dog is to do that. See the difference? So from here to here. So we create space right here at the top of the shoulder. We create space between the biceps and the ears. And that, when we translate this into the pose, it's going to put the work into more of like the shoulder blade and mid-back trapezius area. So that's what we want to do. There's more about the legs, which I'll talk about in a moment. I just wanted to demonstrate this before I turn myself upside down. So let me show you how it works. Here's the setup. What I'm going to do is start somewhat in a hands and knees position. Normally I would say a line, joint over joint, stacking the joints. Here I want you to kind of forget about that. And instead, I want you to take your hands forward, right about there. Spread your fingers out wide, like you want to get as much of the mat underneath your hand as possible. The next part is I'm going to tuck my toes underneath and just lift my knees up off the mat. So right here, this is putting a lot of weight into my fingers and hands, a lot of weight into the upper body, and of course, my quads are working here too. Number two is I want you to push back like this. So this is kind of setting up the upper body and shoulder and back position for the pose. And it's sort of like you're compressed and like you're gonna spring, like you're gonna jump, but you're not. So the knees are really bent, the legs are really feeling this. And step three, I straighten my legs. There we go. So notice in the arms what's going on. So if we go back to that original position here, okay, and you might have seen when I first got into the pose, I adjusted myself a little bit. So when you get into the pose, notice, are you more here, elbows out, shoulders internally rotated, or are you more here? Okay, so what we want, and if you've watched some of my other yoga videos, you might have heard me talk about being more, less bulldog, more Great Dane. Gets the point across to people, I think. So what we're going to do when we translate that analogy here is, let me show you the bulldog wrong way, and then I'll show you the Great Dane right way. So here I am, and now I'm going to do bulldog. Okay, so elbows sticking out, a lot of work in my upper body and a lot of effort, and there it is. So, but if I do my Great Dane, here's what I'm doing. Elbows rotate inwards, I push back, and then I relax the shoulder blades, or again, it was what I was saying earlier of creating this space. When we have weight in our arms, it's a little bit more challenging to do, but you can figure it out. You can do that. So here we are. Here's the Great Dane version. The head wants to just be in between the arms. It may go past. I'm looking like right about here is where my gaze is right now. And then that's the upper body. But what about the legs? What about the pelvis? That's the other half. Okay, so you may try this pose at home and you may think, well, instead of having this kind of shape of like an A-frame, yours is more like a rounded shape in the pelvis area. What is going on there? And what do we do about the legs and the knees? Should the knees be bent or not? What about the heels? So the goal of downward facing dog is not to get your heels to touch the ground. It's not. If yours touch the ground, great. That means your muscles are really lengthened and loose. That's awesome. If yours don't touch the ground, don't worry about it. And if they never touch the ground, still don't worry about it. All that means is that your calf muscles and all of that fascia and the Achilles tendon area are getting a wonderful stretch. Let it be there. It's fine. Should the knees be bent or not? We will, sometimes good when we start the pose, especially if we're just doing our first stretch of the day or our first yoga pose, to let the knees be bent. And as the body gets used to the pose and starts to adjust, then start to straighten them a little bit and maybe a little bit more. But sometimes when we straighten the legs, it'll throw the pelvis out of alignment and make the pelvis round. Let me show you what I mean. So this is what we want to modify. So if this happens to you, we'll take the modifications in a moment. Okay, so if I'm in my down dog and instead of having my pelvis like this, which is what we call an untucked pelvis, and if instead my pelvis looks like that, and maybe I'm here, this may not feel all that great. It may not feel like you're getting much out of it. And for many, many people, this is the case. So let me show you 3 modifications. I almost forgot. And that way you can get the benefits of the pose. So I'm going to show you with the folding chair. You can try this with a kitchen chair, desk chair, kitchen countertop, something like that. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I have the chair turned around. I'm going to place my hands on the back of the chair. This is called half downward facing dog, and it is just as good, and it will help you get the benefit, like I said. So hands to the edges of the back of the chair, feet are more or less underneath me. I may let my knees bend at first until I kind of figure out what's going on with my body, what feels tight, what's feeling okay. I'm feeling okay, so I'm going to go ahead and straighten my knees, but you can adjust that if you need to. And there I am. So as I'm holding this, I'm finding I can go further in between my arms, but that's just because I'm a little bit warmed up, but you moderate that how you need. So there we go. This is our modified downward dog or half downward dog. Now, what if we're doing that, and then we find that I'm not getting much stretch, I need a little bit more. That's where we're going to turn the chair around and then take it to the seat of the chair. So the goal of a prop, in this case, is to bring the floor to me. It's not cheating, it's not making it easy, it's just letting me do what the pose was designed to do. So I'm going to take my hands here, and now I have a little bit more challenge than the last one. There we go, and there we are. And that's it. So one more thing, what about the space of the feet? About hip width, shoulder width or hip width, right about there. We can do it wide, I'm not going to talk about that in this video, but just as a general guideline, right about here, we don't want to be too narrow. So whether you're taking the modified version or the version on the mat, shoulder width apart is a generally good idea. Okay, and the last variation is going to be with the blocks. Now I have 2 cork blocks here set up and they're pushed against the wall. So if you do that, just make sure that they're nice and sturdy and they're not going to move once you put your weight on it. And I'm just going to put my hand or like the heel of my palm like right up there. And then I'm just going to pop up. There we go, right about there. Yeah. And that's it. So as, once I get into the pose, what I start to do is I sort of check in with these various parts, like the shoulders and the elbows. I check out, where's my pelvis? What am I doing with that? What am I doing with my knees and my legs? And you'll see, as you might have noticed when I got into the pose, I tweak a couple of things, and that's fine. What yoga teaches us to do is to get in touch with our bodies and kind of get out of our intellectual mind and our chattering monkey mind and to get into the body. What is the body feeling and experiencing? So this is the next level down from the seat of the chair, and then of course there's the next step down from here, maybe for you to place your hands on the mat. So that is it in a nutshell. Now again, like I said, I could go on to more and more details about downward dog, but I think that's enough to get you started. So please try this. Let me know how it goes. How does it feel to you? And if you have questions, please send them or leave them for me below the video. I do love hearing from you, and I want you to get the hang of this and to get benefit out of it. Okay, so keep me posted. All right, thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate it. Wonderful to have you along, and I'll catch you soon. Thanks, everyone.